16th century. Well, they did. If you wanted to learn science, you had to learn Arabic.
There was a period where the Arabs were advanced. That's true.
So the point here is this: that what changed? What was the catalyst that changed for those nomad goat herding, camel herding, feudal nomads? What changed? Think about that.
Taking over the countries where science was well developed, like in Persia.
Well, look, it seems to me you're guilty of suggesting that when Islam was relatively advanced, which is 1,000 years ago, as a consequence of that theory, or not theory, of that fact, you then say that was when they were good Muslims. The fact that Islam is that Muslim countries are so backward now is a consequence of being bad Muslims. But it seems to me you're allowing yourself to believe that when countries are advanced, it's because they're following the faith. When countries are not advanced, they're not following faith. I would say the converse is true. When countries are not advanced, they're following too much faith. When they are advanced, they're following faith.
But again, you see your argument falls apart on historical evidence. So when you look at the major scholarship within Islam, it's not today. Bukhari, Muslim, the documentation, the books.
When was that?
These were 800 years after, 150 years after, 200 years after. Bukhari was 250 years after.
So that 850 AD.
Right. So what my point here is that academia within Islam erupted and exploded after the Quran came down, after Islam came down. That was the catalyst.
How did the Romans manage to build a civilization without?
Sorry?
How did the Romans manage to build this great civilization that they had, and the Greeks before them, without the benefit of God's guidance?
Because we believe that knowledge is not something that is only given to a believer. Knowledge will be given to anyone who soughts after it. So if this is the principle in Islam, the principle in Islam is that Allah does not give, for example, a rizq, which is money and wealth and food and sustenance, only to the Muslims, only to the believers. He gives it to everybody. He doesn't give knowledge only to the Muslims. Anyone who strives for it, they will acquire it. But you have to strive for it.
We acquire knowledge by studying the universe, studying the world, doing experiments in laboratories.
Yes.
We create our own knowledge. We aren't given it by God. The reason science has advanced so much in the West is simply because we have free spirit inquiry. Galileo was the first one to say the way we learn is by observation, not by revealed truth. The difference between science and religion is that religion is all about revelation. You believe that wisdom comes from somebody telling you that God wants this, or God says this. We believe that true knowledge comes from studying the world as it is and developing scientific theories.
I accept most of what you said. Because the notion within Islam is not that if you want to find out about how fast the earth is revolving around the sun, pick up the Quran and read the Quran.
It's got no science in it.
No, because the Quran says, do they not ponder? Do you not think? Do you not observe between the heavens and the earth? It asks humanity to ponder on creation. And by pondering on creation, it's not just about some romantic notion of sitting on a beach and looking at the stars and saying how pretty they look. It's about immersing yourself in the creation, finding out, exploring, experimenting.
So it recommends
we
do scientific research.
Absolutely.
So why are Muslims so bad at scientific research?
Well, again, you see, look, you make some valid points. A lot of the Muslim world today is uneducated. Most of the institutions or academia are not in Muslim countries. It's a valid point. But the point is, as I said to you, what do you infer from that reality? If you infer that it is a consequence of them being good practicing Muslims, then history proves you wrong.
Not true at all.
Absolutely.
The reason the Muslim world is so back
absolutely.
A statistic which is astonishing. This is a verified statistic done by a United Nations report in 2002.
Yes.
In the entire history of the Arabic world, I'm talking about the Arabic civilization, more than just the Muslim, the Arabic, less books have been translated in the entire history of the Arabic world into Arabic than are translated into Spanish by Spain in 1 year.
Okay, so
in 1 year, my point is,
even if that's
the
true,
Arab world does not learn from the outside world. It not interested in translating other books into Arabic to learn from other cultures.
That's not true. Because in fact,
why did Spain translate more books into Spanish in 1 year than the Arab world?
Well, I'll tell you why that's not true. Because there was a rich tradition of taking science from the Greeks and from other societies, and many literatures, many books were indeed translated into Arabic. The difference was that as the baton of knowledge is passed from one civilization to another, the civilization then builds upon what it has already received, which is what we have seen. And in fact, many scientists have admitted that if it wasn't, the Renaissance in Europe would not have occurred if it wasn't for the universities and the colleges of Andalus in Spain. They've accepted that fact. Oh well, research it. You'll be intrigued. Now, the Muslims are not saying that knowledge is just something that we inherited and we received. Not at all. Allah scatters knowledge all throughout humanity, civilizations, age and time, but it's what you do with that knowledge and where you take that knowledge. So it is very true. But look, again, when you, yes.
Sorry. You do realise 80% of Muslims are not Arab, innit? 80% of Muslims are not Arab. So
and also look.
So to use Islam and then Arab.
Muslim is the religion of the Arabs. It's an Arab religion.
Well, it's not. No, it's not.
It is.
No, it's not.
It's originated, by definition, originated in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca.
Not Saudi Arabia. There's no such place as Saudi Arabia.
It was in the Arabian Peninsula.
Yes.
Muhammad was an Arab.
Yes.
It spread amongst the Arab tribes and then spread from there by conquest through North Africa.
Again, you're wrong. Again, you're wrong. Look, you're wrong.
I don't want that conversation.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. Look, you make a lot of assertions. You make a lot of assertions which are.
What was it spread by conquest in North Africa?
No.
How was the spread?
Okay, I'll make it easy for you. I'm going to use Indonesia as an example.
Which army went
This is
in?
the one you always quote.
Why do you? Okay, here's what we always quote. Okay, North Africa. Okay, let's talk about North Africa. Who lived in North Africa at the time? Christians who believed that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, who escaped persecution. Right. So, did you know that or not? The Christians, the Unitarian Christians who had to escape persecution, where they went, North Africa. Did you know that or not? Okay, so these people are there anyway. They're believing in God, they're believing Jesus is the prophet of God. So when Muhammad comes along, it's very palatable for them. It makes sense to them. Yeah? Or not?
You're making the argument that it was by persuasion and by you're saying there was no use of the sword.
What I'm saying to you, what I'm saying to you is this. It's very, very simple. This is why I said Indonesia, because it's a prime example, and the reason why we always use it, and I don't think why we should stop using it, is it's the most populated Muslim country in the world today. Okay, now if Islam was spread by the sword, not one Muslim soldier landed on its soil. So how does a country like Indonesia become the most populated Muslim country in the world today when no soldier went there? Because so that means Islam must travel by other means. Because how can you have a country so populated with Muslims without a sword? That means trade, immigration.
Okay, but Greg, going back to your point,
merchants.
Going back to your point about.
I don't want to mess the conversation.
Going back to your point about.
All I want to make that one point was you keep referring Islam to Arabs and what Arabs have done and comparing Arab countries and this and the other, and all I'm saying to you is 80% of Muslims are not Arab, so it's unfair to say that Arabs now, 20% of Arabs in the world today represent Islam when they don't. That's all I'm saying.
They do, because the Quran was written in Arabic. It's an Arab religion. It just happens to
Tell me about Malaysian scientists, for example.
There aren't many Malaysian scientists. There are not many Muslim scientists generally, anyway.
Really?
Well, my wife's one.
Tell me about the Muslim surgeons.
Muslims are one Nobel Prize.
You're wrong.
I'm sorry? Who decides who gets a Nobel Prize?
This is the argument.
No. Greg, we're digressing again. We're digressing again. Look,
When did it start?
1905.
1905.
That's where your history starts from.
No, I'm saying that's a measure.
It's not a measure. It's a modern European measure.
It's a measure of current science.
No, but Greg.
The last
Since 1900, absolutely. So you're missing out 1,400 years of history.
No, I'm very happy to go back.
But also, Imran, there's a good reason. No, but Imran.
One invention by Muslims in 500 years. One.
tell you, catgut. Have you heard of catgut? Stitch, have you heard of that? Have you heard of that? What is it used
It's used in tennis rackets, as far as I know.
It was the first sutures used, was invented by Muslim scientists.
When?
I'll give you his name.
I gave you 500 years.
No, 500 years.
But come on,
have you heard of
algebra, optics, algorithms. You wouldn't have peace.
That's 1,000 years ago. An algorithm is just an Arabic word.
My point.
That was
Listen,
invented by Arabs.
Greg.
You're saying Pythagoras to use
With all due respect, right? You're making some points. We're digressing a lot. You're talking about. You're making points like academic. No, but hold on. No, hold on a second. No, but hold on. Look, academic.
Only Europeans who are intellectual.
Let me just hold on. Greg, let's not get upset and angry. Greg, listen. Greg, my point is this. My point is a simple one. The inference that is made from the fact that there are not institutions found which are world renowned in most of the Muslim world is a valid point. The fact that there aren't many Nobel Prizes won by Muslim academics is also a valid point. However, valid point in the sense that statistically, right? If you say no, I'm just saying no.
Which is the started in 1905.
No.
Given out by Europeans.
Yeah, because why?
No, but Imran.
Let me interrupt.
No, hang on a second.
It's a scientific prize, right?
If I may just finish my point, Greg, please.
Today,
Imran.
So who else are we going to use to judge the Nobel
only
Prize?
the last 100 years. The problem you're saying, your problem is this. Your history starts from the Renaissance. You don't go back.
Scientific history starts from the Renaissance.
Absolutely. Did science start in the Renaissance?
Effectively, yeah.
Effectively,
That's nonsense.
in Europe.
The first scientist was Galileo.
That's
because he was the one.
That's nonsense.
Absolutely
That's
false.
nonsense. That's
Ibn
nonsense.
Haytham, the one who discovered the scientific method, who wrote treatises on, I'm telling you, who wrote treatises on how optics and light reflect. You've never heard of him. Why? Because you're European and you've studied in European history in Europe.
So who's this person you're referring to?
Ibn Haytham. You not heard of him at all? Absolutely. Have you heard of Ibn Sina? You've heard of him? He wrote the book called The Canon. You know what it was? It was a medical text used in Europe for 500
years.
From the 1500s.
That's
You don't believe that?
Well, if that's the case, then
That's
science does
absolutely
predate.
No, but Greg.
TB.
Greg's here to learn. Imran, my point was.
He describes TB, how it's transmitted, how to avoid it. It was used as a standard text in Europe. A standard text in Europe for 500 years.
Well, I invite you to explain to me then, if Islam was such a fecund, productive,
Can I address that point?
font of scientific knowledge for so-called hundreds of years.
Can I address that point?
In the last 5 years is it fallen in such disrepair?
That's a very good question.
And he's exploring.
That's a very good question, and that's what I was going to refer to.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
So the academia that you say doesn't exist predominantly in the Muslim world today is true. The fact that there aren't many Muslims who won the Nobel Prize in the last 100 years is also true. Now, the issue with that is this, though. What do we infer from those statistics? Right. That's one way of thinking. Right. Now, the reason why I believe fundamentally you are wrong is because history actually proves it to be so, and I'll tell you why. So when the Ottoman Empire was destroyed in Turkey, we have British politicians and academics who say, for Islam to never rise again, destroy their establishments, destroy their scholarship, and in Spain, in Andalus,
Curzon said that.
Curzon, and in Andalus, do not allow the Muslims to form any collective. Their institutions must be destroyed. Their way of learning. Now, do we see that actually happening? Yes, we do. Throughout history, books were being burned, piled up and being burned. In Andalus, in Spain, when the Christian Crusaders go in, at that time, I believe there were 400 universities or colleges in Spain. Right? Destroyed. So, a whole civilization, first you had Oxford University, Cambridge, and these that translated many Arabic works. In fact, you find an Iraqi scientist who recently did a documentary on BBC. He says that these books were so copied from the Arabs that even the notes on the side and the drawings on the footnotes and the side have been copied exactly.
You want the oldest copy of Aristotle? Aristotle, Plato, you have to go and read Arabic because that's who recorded it.
Right.
They translated the ancient
Right.
Greek.
So, Greg,
I know that.
my point being is this: that look, if you hate Islam, then you're going to say they're not very educated because they're Muslims.
Yes, that's
If you hate Islam, you're going to say that there aren't many academic organizations around the world which are now, renowned and being Muslim organizations because they're Muslim. That is just somebody who I believe has already a predisposition to believe certain things, and now he's fitting the square peg in the round hole to justify his predisposition, his dislike and his hatred for religion or for Islam. But if you look at history and you look at what was being
why are
done,
you here?
no,
Why are you here?
I'll tell you why.
I was born here and I love this country.
No.
Maybe because this
let's
country
be a bit more
colonised that
academic.
country.
Absolutely. The reason that we're here is, lots of people are here, actually is because Europeans invaded and inhabited and took the resources of many countries around the world, and they brought these people with them to different places around the world, and now you have that.
I admit that Europe's preceded
absolutely,
that.
son.
But not the Muslims as well.
So,
Didn't they,
for example, I'll give you an
Andalusia
example.
was an invasion of Spain
I'll
by
give
the
an
Muslims,
example.
right?
Wait a minute. Let's stick to one point at a time.
They didn't invade Spain.
Greg, the issue here is this. The issue here is this. We do have history that shows that often the people of those lands, because they were being oppressed, they invited the Muslims to
I
come
don't believe
in.
that for a moment.
Well, again,
Do you believe historians?
Greg. Again, Greg.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was just saying this to somebody else today. Have you heard of David Wasserstein? Jewish professor of history. Right. He wrote an article in the Jewish Chronicle. Yeah, and the article is called "Islam Saved Jewry," meaning if it wasn't for the Muslims coming into Spain, the Jews would have been wiped out by the Catholics then. All right.
Okay, I agree to that.
Right. They were invited because don't forget, in Spain they didn't belong to anybody. You had the Gnostics.
Who invited them in?
I think it was the Gnostics, if I'm not wrong.
So who invited the Muslims into Spain?
I think it was.
King Roderick II was oppressing the Christian people. You can look this up. And the Muslims' armies arrived as liberators for those people.
They're invited,
Yeah, they were invited.
Yes.
specifically. You can look it up.
My point is this.
But
you know how long they stayed?
Eurocentric history.
Just say I won't look. I will look at it. I believe it's an invasion.
Well, Greg, but listen, Greg, just so you know. And what this David Wasserstein goes on to say, because the Muslims remained in Andalusia, in Spain, for 800 years, the Jews were protected within that society.
Well, in fact,
and they could rediscover their history.
The golden era.
The golden era
of Jewry in the Islamic State.
Okay, I grant you that. They
Now
treated
listen,
the Jews well.
when the Catholics, Isabella and Ferdinand, created such an army to remove the Muslims from Spain, the Muslims give the jizya back to the Jews and said, we can't protect you anymore. And they retreated to Morocco. And the Jews said, can we come with you? And this way one of the biggest Jewish enclaves in the Arab world was, amongst the Muslims, was in Morocco, before a state of Israel. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So, and then the Jews were, that's where they came to escape, because they were being forced to convert to Catholicism, with the Inquisition and all of this business, but they got sanctuary within the Muslims. So what David Wasserstein says, if it wasn't for Islam, the Jews would have been eradicated.
From Spain.
In Europe,
Were they all in Spain?
No, but Greg, listen.
No, just-
the point is this.
We're talking about the golden era here.
The point.
But you're saying
Greg,
the Jews would have been wiped out in Europe. I'm
They
saying
wouldn't have had the opportunity.
The Muslims were only in Spain.
No.
They weren't in France. They weren't in Italy. They weren't in Germany. So you're saying the Jews didn't exist?
No,
in those
what
other
we're
countries,
saying
only
is,
existed in Spain.
what you're missing the point here is the golden era of Jewry in this 800 years give them a chance to regroup and regrow and study and research. If they didn't have that blanket, they would have been persecuted wherever they went.
As they are now.
And Greg, the point here,
really,
Greg,
no.
the point here is this: that as rational and reasonable human beings, and as somebody who I would hope would want to be fair and just, right? You have to look at things in their entirety. When you pinpoint one event, one guy who goes and bombs somebody, or one individual who goes and does something, or a group of people who don't do something unjust, being a rational, being a reasonable person, being a fair-minded person, you have to look at the picture in its entirety.
I do.
And when you look at it in its entirety, with the eyes of even non-Muslim historians, like Karen Armstrong and many others that have come, they don't say what you say, Greg, and they've spent their lives studying history, religious history.
I could not find a historian that would disagree with that.
No, of course not. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is this.
So you're quoting selectively historians that you say.
No.
Non-Muslim historians.
Your particular view.
No, but
and I'm saying, I'm challenging you. I'm saying, could I not find other historians who would have a contrary view?
Greg, you will find people who will argue that the world is flat. What does that prove?
Muslim world,
No, Muslims don't believe the world is flat, right? You will find people who will argue with you, and they will argue. And in fact, there's a museum in America which is based upon creationism, where they have dinosaurs playing with children, right? You could Google it, and
I believe that's true.
of course not, right?
No, but no. Do you believe that such a museum exists in America?
No, you can
Dinosaurs playing with
Google it now. It's a Christian-backed, Christian-funded. So, Greg,
will tell you
Greg, let me just finish my point. Let me just finish my point.
I don't promote
Greg, please.
Christianity at all.
Let me just finish my point. Greg,
Yes, I am.
let me just finish my point.
Christianity is just as mistaken as Islam, but it's a better religion.
But Greg, let me just finish my point.
What's your criteria?
My point is this. My point,
It's more
Greg.
tolerant. Islam is totally intolerant. Christianity is tolerant.
Well, Greg, my point is this, Greg, right? That for you to say that I could find a historian or I could find somebody who would disagree with you, you will find people that will disagree with anything or everything. That doesn't prove anything. But on what
does?
But what I tell you what does. I tell you what does.
Is the proportion of people that believe in something.
Yes.
You can always selectively
Exactly.
find a minority of 5% who believe anything. As you say.
Exactly.
You always find somebody who believes the others is flat. It doesn't mean that the majority of people believe the others is flat.
And in my experience,
So I'm saying,
academia and sound historical evidence providers, provers, studiers are saying the opposite to you. The minority opinion is that Islam is just being a treacherous, warmongering religion, and generally these people have another agenda. They're not. Most of them not
my
historians.
agenda is to make not just you, the Christians, give up religion. Science is the only reliable.
You know what your agenda should be, Greg?
Not at all, actually.
You know what your agenda should be?
It's completely unreliable.
Greg,
because it's about
you know what your agenda should.
Well, you know, science by definition can't prove
But hold on. Your agenda, Greg, should be, as should ours be, to find the truth and go wherever the truth takes you.
Yes, the science
that should be our agenda. But you see, Greg, if your agenda is truly to disprove something, then even when you find powerful evidence, like when I told you about Professor Raymond Farrin or Neil Robinson, or intellectuals like Timothy Winters, you see, what you should do, somebody who wants to find the truth, or at least challenge it, if it's given to you, is at least go away and study what these people are saying. Because I believe that there are certain things that are very subjective. Things can be translated in different ways, depending on which translation you go to, depending on who you speak to. And there are other things that are far more analytical and empirical. They're far more testable.
My thesis simply is that I believe all religions are mistaken. They were all created during periods pre-science, when people didn't understand why the world existed. We still don't understand why it exists, but we understand how it exists. We didn't understand what makes the sun go across the sky. We didn't understand why the Nile flooded once a year. In the pre-scientific age, people invented all civilizations, not just Muslim ones, but in the Greeks, the Romans, the Hindus, and so on. They all had a multiplicity of gods to explain what happened around them. Science is gradually eroding the need for this, because science is gradually explaining why the world behaves as it does, without relying upon some mythical creator that's created everything, and then tells us how to live our life morally.
You made some assumptions there. Now, your assumption is, first of all, that all religions are the same.
No, I said they're equally mistaken, but they're not the same. Like I said, Christianity is a better religion than
they all preach
Islam. Because Islam is intolerant.
But they all preach the notion that
it was intolerant.
Okay.
Christianity was hugely intolerant.
Okay.
It's no longer intolerant.
Because it was separated from ruling.
Separated from what?
The church and state were separated after the wars.
No, they had a Reformation, which Islam pointedly has not had. And because of the Reformation, Christianity has been forced, has been dragged into the modern world.
It's not been
they tried to persecute Galileo.
Separated from ruling.
Of course it has, because we believe we've always had the concept in the West that what belongs to what belongs
European history with religion is not the same as Eastern and Eastern experience of religion. That's the problem that you're having. You're imposing your European history with religion onto Muslims.
Exactly.
We never had this
That's my point.
with the Muslims being ruled
and that's
by...
why the Islamic world is so backward, because you don't have a separation of church and state.
Absolutely false.
Because religion informs every aspect of human life in a Muslim country.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
People are brainwashed from
No, it
birth.
doesn't.
That's why there's no research in Muslim countries. That's why there's no productivity in Muslim countries.
Okay.
Because they're brainwashed from birth to believe that...
even that is actually false, and I'll tell you why it's false. You go to any hospital here, you'll find Muslim doctors, you'll find Muslim surgeons, you'll find Muslim research scientists.
Many of them train in the West, but yes, there are.
No, but of course they will. But just as they trained in the East before, just as they trained in Andalus before.
Are you trying to make the case that somehow Islam is producing as many scientists as the Western?
No, look, it's not about a numbers game.
It is a numbers game.
No, it's not.
It is a fucking numbers game. It's got nothing to...
No.
That's ridiculous.
Listen,
if I say to you that 99% of the world's productivity comes from Europeans and 1% from Islam,
is it
you say, but it's not a numbers game.
Okay, is it a numbers game? Okay, is it a numbers game? It's a numbers game. Okay,
it's absolutely.
So at the time in Spain, when the Muslims were at the pinnacle of humanity when it came to science and scientific research, by your admission then, they were right. Because they were the majority.
No, all religions are wrong, but I concede to you that if there was a period, and I'm not conceding that they're necessary,
right.
If there was a period when the Muslims were predominant in research,
right,
there might have been historical reasons why that was the case.
So were they right because of their religion?
Well, they're right.
Yes.
No, they're not right. Because of their
so they're still wrong.
But I'm saying, if
they're the majority, they're still wrong. If they're a minority, they're still wrong.
They're wrong all the time.
They're wrong all the time. It's like heads I win, tails you lose.
I'm saying science is right. I'm simply saying.
But Greg,
I'm saying that our civilization is superior to the Islamic civilization. About why the world is what it is. The only reason we've advanced, the reason we've advanced in the last 500 years so dramatically is because we have applied our intellect not to studying ancient texts, but to studying the world. And there's a big difference. If you want to spend your life studying ancient texts, you will not progress. If you study the world, you will progress.
Making these really wide sweeping statements that are just gross generalizations of what people do.
They're not generalizations, they're absolutely true. We've advanced because we study science.
No.
The Muslim world is not advancing by making it modern, productive civilization.
Do you say the world's more moral? It says more moral.
Yes, the world is more moral than it ever was, yes.
Really?
Yes. The world is more... Don't you believe that morally the world is progressing, not just in the West, but generally? Well, I'll speak of the West.
What's your moral anchor?
It's the brain of man to invent our own laws. Here's the big difference.
What's your moral anchor?
My moral anchor is belief that we can create, through our intellect, we create our own laws.
So who decides what's right and wrong?
By the general dictates of educated people discussing
social consensus.
Social consensus, yes, that's a good expression.
Consensus. All right. So you think alcohol's a good thing, yeah?
I'm not saying it's a negative. Is it a good thing? I have no problem with alcohol. I consume alcohol.
Is it good for society or bad?
In moderation, it's fine.
Is it good for bad?
Why do you say everything in black and white? What's wrong with alcohol?
I'll tell you why. Because there are people today victims of alcohol abuse. Name a country
for 500 years, not the last 100.
But you see, you've got 500 years of war, of pillage. You got 500 years. Hold on a second. Let me finish.
So the centres were not destroyed.
Hold on a second.
We destroyed the centres.
Greg, you ask a question. At least allow me to finish the answer.
Do you think Europeans only exist since
you say 500 years, yeah? Even if I were to agree with you, even if I was to, what happened in Andalus 500 years ago?
Nothing. They'll go on for 500 years ago.
Right. You had Europeans who fought with the Muslims to evict them out of a land which they thought, or they said, was theirs, Christian land. What did they do in Andalus? They destroyed the universities, the colleges, the literature. They killed as many as they could get their hands on.
Your thesis is that it was the destruction of centres of learning in Andalusia, which caused the Muslim world.
I'm saying that
nothing
these.
to do with the Muslim lands.
Look,
in
I'm saying to you,
Iraq.
what I'm saying to you, Greg, is this: don't look at things completely blinkered in a polarized way. There's a whole array of history that has shaped and influenced. Hold on a second.
But you were just making
Hold on a second.
You were making the claim that the reason the Islamic world is backward is because somehow
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Destroyed
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You asked
I
about
didn't say
Muslim
that.
scientists.
I didn't say that.
Where are the Muslim scientists
You said,
today?
and what's happened in the last 500 years? And what's happened in the last...
You said they had nowhere to study.
They're going to study. Where are they going to study? Iraq? Look, where are they going to study? Iraq? Syria?
His claim
Where are they going to
was
study?
that these potential...
Where are they going to study?
Let him answer the question.
His claim was simply that there was no places for Muslims to learn science.
I'm not saying that either. I didn't say that. Now you're saying that.
Here's what he
You're
did. He didn't say
imposing.
that.
You're imposing.
Did you not talk about the destruction of centres of learning being the cause of the absence of Muslim science?
You asked the question.
Did you not say that there was a destruction of potential centres of learning and that caused the backwardness of Muslim science?
Greg, sorry, you just went 500. You asked from why is there no Muslim scientists today? He's explaining it. Then you're going back 500 years. What's that got to do with today?
I'm saying over the last 500 years.
No. You didn't say that though. No, you didn't say that, Greg. You said where are the Muslim scientists today? You said that's what you said. So he's trying to explain about the institutions. Then you said 500 years ago now.
Okay, so let's make it more general. Well, I'm not trying to move the goalposts.
Well, you kind of are.
If I did, I apologise, but I wasn't trying to. I simply was saying that to me, Islamic science has been very backward for the last 500 years.
Right.
So
I deny that that's because the Europeans have been oppressing them. I think it's because Islam oppresses them.
Okay.
Islam is a mind.
Okay, hold on. Let him finish his point.
800, 900 years before your 500 years.
No, let me make his point.
I tried to counter that. What you just said then.
What was the reason for their non-backwardness then? Whilst the Europeans were backward, because in Rome and Baghdad they were using gas street lighting, while the Europeans in the 1200s were still walking and having their pigs and things in their homes.
No, look. Okay, let me finish.
I have made my point.
I'm not being
Greg, he hasn't finished his point.
I think the Chinese are well ahead of us at that point as well. The Chinese had the best civilization of all. And India was very advanced in that point as well. So I'm not being Eurocentric to say that only Europe was advanced.
Good. I'm glad that you've made that sort of concession, because actually that's not how you come across.
No, but I'm saying in the last 100 years we have created modern civilization because it's the scientific.
So Imran is asking you a simple question. What changed? What changed from the civilization that Islam had to what it has now? What changed? That's all he's asking.
There's a book called The Closing of the Muslim Mind which debates that particular topic. It suggests that in the 11th or 12th century there was a debate in Islam between two schools of thought. One of which said that you could try to investigate God's creation and understand the laws of creation, and another school of thought which said no, you cannot do that.
What schools talking about?
There's a book called The Closing of the Muslim Mind.
I believe everything you read, mate.
But Greg, you know what it is? The issue here is this. Imran raises a very, very important point.
What changed?
Which is that you have to be consistent. Because if you blame Islam for something, then when there was Islam and it was followed perhaps a lot more closely than it's followed today, because we have historical evidence to support that.
I'm saying
we have. I explained to you.
You're saying
yes.
When Islam was relatively advanced compared to the West, which did exist, I grant you, that was because they were good Muslims.
Yes.
And now that Islam is very poor compared to the West,
yes.
it's because Muslims are bad Muslims.
No, but again,
the cart leads the horse. Your definition of what's good Muslim is when you are advanced.
Why that's the case? Just listen. If you look at let's go back to the pre-Islamic Arabs. Let's look at them as a civilization. If you look at it, just forget the laws that they were doing. That marrying without limits, as many as you like. The position of women in societies, the oppression of slavery, and these things. That group of people never moved out of that area. They didn't move out there. They didn't expand beyond that. When Islam came, two things happened. The Quran came along, which actually says within it, they will look into the horizons and within themselves, and they will see signs that this is the truth. So the Quran points you towards studying the world around you as an evidence of the existence of the Creator. So we find the world and science fascinating as Muslims, because we see in this complexity and this amazingness of nature, we see the fingerprints of God upon the creation. So actually there's a big driver for the Muslims to study and to excel in the sciences. And actually they did that. They did that amazingly. And then there was a military expansion, which is different from religious expansion, because you were conflating conflating the two together.
Sword. I don't mind you doing it because we did it as well, but I'm simply saying for Muslims to deny that Islam was spread by the sword is to me duplicitous, because Islam was spread by the sword.
Your statement is incorrect. So I've made a distinction. There's a military expansion of the lands.
What does that mean?
It means you take over the lands. That's
By the sword. That's what I call it.
But it's not the spread of Islam by the sword. We don't enforce religion by the sword. That's because the Quran says, like there is no compulsion within religion, and then there's no one who's going to say to you that.
So why is there a law of apostasy if there's no compulsion in religion?
Well, that's a different issue, and we can talk about that.
But I also explained to you, Greg, that in the Ottoman Empire, for 500 years, the hudud punishment of apostasy or of killing for adultery, whatever, stoning to death, there was one recorded incident in 5.
Why are we falling back into worse situations?
Greg, you have to allow me to finish the question, please, because you raise a question. You've got to listen to the answer. But listen.
You're repeating
but listen. But Greg, my point is this. Greg, my point is this: that this caricature that is often made about
Western caricature.
Exactly. This caricature that's made up about what Muslims are, what Islam preaches, what they have to do, is far removed from the reality. So all I'm saying to you, Greg, is this: don't be so polarized in your thinking, black and white. There are many areas of grey. There are many influences, many facets of influence that come together and create a certain environment. Don't just look at Muslim, uneducated, because he's Muslim. End of topic.
I agree.
It's a very simplistic, very ignorant way of looking at the world. When we look, for example, at people being uneducated in the Asian subcontinent or in Africa or whatever, what about the political situation? What about the dictatorships that are there, that oppress their own people, that don't spend on education? They don't have free schooling. In Pakistan, there's no free schooling, right? So if you're poor, you're just worried about where your next meal is coming from. You don't have a school to go to. There is no education there. So my point being is this: don't just say Pakistan Muslim uneducated because they're Muslim. Look at the multifaceted. It's a very complex environment, and also
in the modern world.
But Greg, but that's all very nationalistic and very. It's all very. It's an emotional. But please, but look, no.
Raped and colonized.
No, but please, let's stick to the point.
You did. You said to get other.
No, but please, let's stick to our point.
Make a point.
Yeah, please.
What would Africa be like today if the West had not gone into Africa?
It would have been completely free. There would have been no.
There'd be no interest to the
They
West.
wouldn't be jumping on boats to get.
They would have their own resources.
Why are so many Africans trying to get into here?
Where do diamonds come from? Where does gold come from?
Let Imran make his point. Let Imran make his point.
So after the Muslims started to excel in their religion and use it was a driver to seek knowledge. The Muslims had expanded militarily.
Sorry.
People saw the Muslims' behaviour, their actions, and that's what actually led for the people to become Muslims themselves. Because as you're probably not aware, that actually Islam runs parallel legal systems. So if you're a Christian and you're living in a Muslim town, you can run your life by Christian law. You're not required to adopt even the Islamic law. So,
well, we allow you in this country to run to have mosques.
No, you don't. That's not allowed. You're misunderstanding. It's not a parallel legal system in this country. So actually,
there are Sharia courts in this country.
There is not a parallel legal system in this country. There are.
Nor should there be.
No. Well, absolutely. So we have a different concept when the Muslims were ruling. We allowed people to live their lives in complete freedom, multiculturally, running their own legal systems in parallel with the Islamic legal system.
Is that a good thing?
A much better system than the system that we have.
So we should allow that here today?
No, that's not what I'm asking for. You're leading the conversation in a direction that's not. I'm just giving an example.
No, you're suggesting that one of the merits of the Muslim expansion was allowing parallel legal systems. Do you think that's the right and appropriate way to run the system?
I think that is a better legal system.
So you would argue that in the West we should have the same system?
So this is a Muslim system that with other people living within it. So we're not describing a system here.
But also,
Are you saying we should allow parallel legal systems?
Can I deal with that issue, Greg? Greg, if there is something that you feel is beneficial to humanity, would you not desire that? Okay. Would it be wrong for you to impose that?
Impose what? I don't know. You don't really know.
That way of thinking that you have.
Not for Europeans, it's not. Yeah, but would it be wrong for me to make a unilateral decision to impose my views on other people?
Yes. It would be wrong. It would be wrong. That's exactly what he's saying. Which is that it's exactly what he's just said. Which is that this is a better system. It's a fairer system.
So
hold on a second.
The parallel system.
The parallel system. It's a more just system. It is better for humanity. But what you're saying, hold on a second. No. Hold on a second. That's his opinion. He's entitled to his opinion, right? Okay. But what he's not saying, and what Muslims are not saying, and what Islam does not say, is that now you must impose that on other people. So there's nothing wrong with that, is there, Greg?
And then what happens?
You would agree with that? That's not wrong, then, is it?
If people, well, okay, that's a very complex question.
Right.
If you have a modern society where you have increasingly a more diverse population,
yes,
it's a moral question. Do we allow all the subordinate minority groups to run their own system, their own legal system, separate from our system, or do we require people in this country to have a common set of laws?
Define legal system. Define legal system. What do you mean by legal system?
By which I mean...
what speed you can drive on the road?
All the laws.
Okay, well, Islam doesn't say that anyway. And that's not what he's saying. So, the Sharia, for example, is about religious practices, laws, and a way of life that you must lead for Muslims. So, for example, I'm in England. In England, alcohol is allowed. As a Muslim, I'm not permitted to start demonstrating outside a pub and saying, shut this down because this is forbidden. No, you're not permitted. You're not permitted.
By Islam.
Islam does not allow you. Islam does not permit you or allow you to impose your religion on somebody else. You see, the reason why you're a little bit mixed up, Greg, is because you do see some... No, hold on a second. No, please, listen. Greg.